Hey, how's it going, guys? I hope you're having a super fantastic day today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Zachary Koch. I'm a freelance filmmaker and videographer living within the greater Oklahoma City area. In today's video, we are talking about filmmaking equipment and all of the necessary pieces of equipment that you might need to make your first movie. Before we begin, though, I need to level with you really quick. I'm about to single-handedly end this argument that's been going on in filmmaking circles for way too long, and it's this argument over whether gear actually matters. Well, how are you going to make a movie without a camera? I know, it's insane. Like, I just probably blew your freaking mind, right? Of course, gear matters. How are you supposed to make anything without it? Like, we need lights, we need cameras, we need microphones. Now, do we need the absolute best? Definitely not. And in this video, I hope to share with you a few pieces of equipment that I think are really, really great for budget filmmakers. Filmmaking equipment obviously does encompass a lot of different categories. So you have the visual department, which is going to be like your camera bodies, your lenses, gimbals, things of that sort. And then for, audio, shotgun mics, on-camera mics, lavalier microphones, and all of that good stuff. If you don't know what some of those things are, don't worry, we're gonna get into it in this video. And then obviously with lighting, we have like spotlights and LEDs and stands and C-stands and oh my gosh, the list goes on and on and on. And if you're just starting out, it can be very, very intimidating. I'm hoping to bring some of my experience in here and help you pick out some of the best budget filmmaking equipment for 2021. Okay, so talking about cameras, obviously you're gonna need a camera if you're going to be recording anything at all. Right off the bat, I totally recommend Panasonic cameras. The Panasonic Lumix G7 is still a really strong camera, even in the year 2021. For the $500 price tag, which includes the camera body and the Panasonic 14 to 42 millimeter, I think it's a really good deal. And you can actually pick these cameras up used for like next to nothing. Now, if $500 is still kind of steep for you, there's a couple of other options on the markets. From Panasonic, again, we have the Panasonic Lumix GH3, which can be had for under $300. I actually bought one. Hold on just a second. Yeah, I want to say it's about 8 years old. Get a little closer look at this bad boy. Look at this thing. Look at this camera. The differences between the Panasonic GH3 and the Panasonic G7 is that the GH3 doesn't actually shoot 4K, it only shoots HD, but it does have a few more professional features that you're not gonna find on these entry-level newer cameras. One of them is timecode. You can actually run timecode on this camera. Not that I think you need to worry about that if you're a beginner, but it's kind of a cool thing that it does. Another thing is that it is weather sealed and it's got a magnesium body, which is a lot higher quality, and it's honestly just a lot nicer. Although, like I said earlier, it only shoots HD, it doesn't shoot 4K, which might be a drawback to you, but honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Another camera that I highly recommend is the Canon Rebel series cameras. I know I started off on I know I started off with a Canon Rebel T5i, but you can actually pick up a Canon Rebel like T2i or T3i for like a few $100, a couple $100. They're really strong options. They're also interchangeable lens cameras with full manual controls, and they should have microphone inputs as well. Now you're probably wondering, do I need a rig? Do I need a shoulder rig? Do I need to rig out my camera and put a matte box on it and a battery and put a cage on it and all this other stuff that you see a lot of filmmakers doing on YouTube? And the short answer to this is absolutely not. I know a lot of people do it on the internet, and I just know a lot of people do it in general. Rigging out your camera is really fun. It's like adult Legos, to be honest. It's something I've done in the past, and it's definitely useful, but it's not necessary or required if you're making films. One of the ironic things about rigging out your camera is you're taking these small, lightweight, mirrorless cameras, which most people would see as like a tremendous benefit and pro to using small mirrorless cameras, and they make them bigger. This is my opinion, and you can just do whatever you want with it. But I would say, like, if you find yourself rigging out your camera and essentially fixing some of the quote unquote issues with it through doing that, like ergonomics and battery life and throwing other monitors on it, yeah, all those things are great, but maybe you should just look at getting a different camera, like a proper video camera with built-in ND filters, XLR inputs, better battery life, and built-in top handles and stuff like that. Lately, for all my recent projects, I've just been shooting on my Panasonic GH5 completely bare. It's completely bare right now. I have my camera, I have the Rode Wireless Go sitting on top of it, and a lens on a tripod. It's honestly really simple, and the fact that the image stabilization on this camera is so good makes it to where I don't really need to worry about stabilization. You might be wondering, do I need a shoulder rig to put the camera on my shoulder? Yes, possibly if you're shooting with a DSLR. Earlier in this video, I recommended the Canon Rebel cameras, and those do not have image stabilization. Actually, now that I think about it, neither does the Panasonic cameras I recommended. So maybe getting a shoulder rig will help with stabilization and stuff. But if you're just starting out with filmmaking, I don't necessarily recommend shooting handheld or shooting like free in that way. You should really just like learn the basics by planting your camera on a tripod or putting it on a slider. Honestly, I wish I had done that more when I started out, because my filmmaking was insane when I started out. I would just point the camera at whatever was happening and I was reacting to the action instead of planning and like actually staging the action with my camera. So I think a good practice when you're starting out is just don't worry about stabilization, put your camera on a tripod, get a slider, and just go from there. Okay, so what tripods do I recommend? Honestly, Magnus is a really good brand. I found I've been shooting with Magnus tripods for a while now. I've owned a couple of them, but the one that I've stuck with and the one that's lasted me for the last several years now is the Magnus VT4000. Now, this tripod's gonna run you a little over $150, which is a little bit pricey, but it kind of does make a difference. A couple of things that I really like about this tripod. First of all, it is a proper video tripod, so it has what's called a fluid head. And the benefits of a fluid head is it allows for smooth pans and tilts. Please, 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 whatever you do, do not go on Amazon and buy an Amazon Basics tripod with a friction head that like you can barely move. Trust me, I've been there. These tripods are super lightweight. They'll blow over in the wind. You'll drop your camera. And even if that doesn't happen, you're kind of limited to whatever position you set your camera up in. You literally cannot pan it, you cannot tilt it, you don't have that freedom. It's not strong enough to put a slider on, so just don't do it. Honestly, it's a lot more important than most people realize. Okay, let's talk about lenses now. You're gonna obviously need to put a lens in front of your camera if you're gonna actually end up capturing any images at all. And if you're just starting out, I highly recommend prime lenses. What is a prime lens, you might ask? Well, prime lenses have a fixed focal length, meaning that you cannot zoom them. That's actually incredibly beneficial to your development as a filmmaker, because it's going to require you to actually move closer to your subject instead of just zooming in and changing the focal length all the time. Every focal length kind of has a different characteristic and a different property to it, and you're not really going to learn that or understand that unless you're forced to working with specific focal lengths like you would with prime lenses. Not to mention, prime lenses are a lot cheaper, they are much better in low light, and they're going to be a lot sharper, so they're higher quality and better in most regards. The only thing you're sacrificing is versatility, because zoom lenses have more than one focal length. But a couple of lenses I highly recommend if you're shooting on micro four thirds Panasonic camera, go ahead and pick up the Lumix 25mm f1.7. This lens is like dirt cheap, and it's something that's gonna like last you for a long time. If you're shooting with that Canon DSLR I mentioned earlier, go with the nifty 50. Basically, it's a 50mm f1.8 lens, which with the crop, it's gonna be more like a 76mm lens, but it's actually incredibly cheap, it's incredibly fast, it's pretty sharp as well. Honestly, it's also a lens that will last you for a really long time. Actually, on that note, there's a few other lenses from Canon that are not that bad actually. They have the 10 to 18mm zoom lens, which isn't a very fast zoom lens, which means it's not very good in low light, but it's fairly sharp. And if you're looking for an ultra wide angle lens, that would be the one to pick up. Now, if $150 so still seems like a lot for you investing in your first lenses, don't worry, there are other options on the market. For example, buying vintage lenses, they're actually incredibly cheap. You can pick up a 28mm Canon FD lens for literally like $30. So go on eBay, try and find a good used one that's in decent condition, and honestly, that will last you for a really long time. Also, the Canon 50mm f1.8 is pretty decent too. The FD mount ones, those ones are pretty good too. So just, you know, get an adapter, FD to EF mount adapter, and you'll be totally fine. Okay, so as far as audio goes, you're definitely gonna need a shotgun microphone. What is a shotgun microphone, you might ask? Well, to put it simply, it's basically a microphone that picks up audio primarily from the front and rejects audio from behind for the most part. You're gonna definitely want one of these for when you're shooting your dialogue scenes, and you're gonna want to put it on the end of a boom pole so that you can get it as close to your actors as possible. The microphone that I recommend that's really affordable and honestly doesn't sound half bad is the Rode Video Micro. This microphone is literally only $60, and honestly, you can use it as an onboard camera mic or put it on a boom pole, connect it to the camera with a 10-foot audio cable, and use it as a shotgun microphone. It's honestly really great and really versatile. We need to talk about lighting. Obviously, lighting. I actually use a newer LED panel, which is on the ceiling right now. I'm actually not using it in this video, but it's my background light and it works pretty well. It's also served me well for like many years. Oh my gosh, I've had this thing for for quite a while. I did not realize how long I've had this thing. Definitely get like a 1x1 LED panel, like one of the ones I have in the description. GVM is a pretty good brand, but also newer if you're just looking for a really cheap one. A couple benefits to using these LED panels specifically is, for one, they're really bright. Number two, they don't get hot or anything like that. And for three, they're actually pretty affordable. Not to mention lightweight and easy to transport. Honestly, all around, it's just a really good deal. My current lighting setup right now, which I'm actually hoping to upgrade in the near future, but because I'm working within such a small space, and that's tends to be the case for me, I'm okay with this relatively small setup. But I use a Godox SL60W for my spotlight, and then I use for my main modifier this softbox here, which is the Aperture Light Dome Mini. Both of those things together are gonna run you about... The Godox light is about $130, and this light dome is about $90 or so. This is a really good setup for like YouTube and interview style stuff. Maybe you want to do documentary films and you want to do talking head stuff like this. You can totally just set up this light, the softbox, and you can film in tight spaces and totally be set. A couple reasons why you might want a softbox is because it makes the light source bigger. If you know anything about lighting, the bigger the light source, the softer and more pleasing it's going to look on your subject's face. Like mine right now, even though this one is relatively small. Also, hold on just a second. This is the Aperture MC. It's a tiny pocket-sized LED light, and it comes with this silicone diffusion thing, so it actually makes the light a little bit softer, even though it is so tiny. I've used this for literally every single project that I've shot since I bought this thing. It's so versatile, it's so handy. It's also magnetic. I forgot to mention, this thing can literally magnetize. There's nothing to magnetize it to right now, but you don't even need a stand for this light, because literally this magnetic back can stick to more things than you realize. And so you can just put this on the ceiling, put this on the wall, put this literally anywhere, and it'll work. So yeah, this light is super awesome, incredibly versatile, and I highly recommend it. I also used it to light an entire music video, which you can watch right here. It's called Earwax Blues. It's incredibly weird and abstract, but this is the only light I used for that entire video. Like, I'm not even joking. And I thought it turned out pretty well, actually. One last note on lighting. I highly recommend, if you're just starting out, try to film outside as much as possible in the daylight. Don't try and do really fancy lighting setups, because those things and those skills will come with time. And also, the sun is like the best source of lighting that we have access to. So like, just lean into that, because the sun is freaking awesome. I also recommend filming towards the beginning of the day and towards the end of the day. That way the sun is going to be lower in the sky, and it's going to catch people's faces from more of an angle. You don't really want to film at noon, because downlighting is actually not very attractive. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to tilt my head towards my lighting source. This looks ridiculous. Trust me, I'm fully aware, but look at these like dark spots under my eyes. It doesn't look very attractive. So try and get the light to like catch people's side a little bit more. It's just more flattering, and just do it. But yeah, I think that's gonna about do it for this video. Links to all the gear I mentioned in this video is gonna be in the description below. And if you actually purchase the gear through those links, it's actually gonna help me out a lot, because they're all affiliate links. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.